Welcome to the show that brings you the biggest and best motoring stories from across Europe. In this episode, I'm in Iceland visiting a company that makes the toughest off-roaders in the world. Journalist Frank Jacobs visits Dutch supercar manufacturers Spyker. Racing driver Sabine Schmitz tests a new mid-size SUV from Mercedes, the GLK. And Jonny Smith drives Alfa Romeo's new super chic alternative to the Mini, the Mito. In December of this year, 13 people are going to drive over 3,000 kilometres in just over 45 days, somewhere where no car has ever gone before. The South Pole. And then they're going to have to drive back again. To do that, they're going to need a very special kind of truck. This. Well, not so much this. More like that. Welcome to the home of Arctic Trucks, makers of vehicles that go where nothing on wheels has gone before. Now, it's got these 44-inch tyres, which are used for flotation on snow. They've cut away all of the bodywork so that they can still turn the wheels, fitted heavy-duty shocks, and moved all the suspension around. If you come with me under here... Ooh, hello. Now, under here, you've basically got the normal fuel tank, which is about 80 litres. But they've fitted this huge 130-litre auxiliary fuel tank, and then in front of that, there's another 55-litre fuel tank. It means that this car's got a huge range, and in conditions where they're going at the South Pole, they need to make sure they've got enough fuel. Now, they can't carry all that fuel just on the truck. Hence, they've invented this. It's an off-road snow trailer. It looks fairly simple, but it's got the same suspension, wheels and tyres as the truck. But also, when it gets really serious and they really need to spread the weight, they've got these huge skis for the trailer. This is one serious rig. Sadly, they haven't asked me along on that particular trip. But fortunately, I've managed to arrange an expedition of my own, here in Iceland, the home of Arctic Trucks. There can be few more challenging environments, a place that seems unaffected by the passage of time, as unforgiving now as it was millions of years ago. There are glaciers, waterfalls and lava terrain harsher than the surface of the moon, which is probably why NASA trained their astronauts here. And I've got the perfect vehicle to explore it in. Once upon a time, this was a plain old Toyota Land Cruiser, a car so stubborn and capable, the United Nations used them to save the world. Thanks to Arctic Trucks, however, this one's even tougher. Emil Grimson, chairman of the company, has agreed to act as my guide for the day.
We're heading off down here now. What? This just looks like a dirt track.
The engine from the standard Land Cruiser is retained, so it has a 4-cylinder 3-litre turbo diesel, putting out 166 PS and 410 Nm of torque, although the gearbox ratios are changed to cope with the massive 38-inch tyres. Arctic Trucks don't quote top speeds or 0 to 100 times, because it's not about how quickly you get there, it's simply about being able to get there.
Oh, hey, there's those tyres soaking up those big bumps. Yeah.
And it's the work undertaken to accommodate those wheels that makes this car so impressive. The vehicle is stripped down to extend the wheelbase by 16 centimetres and the suspension jacked up by 40 millimetres, as well as getting a reinforced underside to withstand the most extreme punishment.
Whoa, big water splash.
Whoa, that's a big one.
On the road, the tyre pressures are kept to 27 psi, but on gravel, Arctic Trucks deflate them to 14, which increases the footprint and gives them more grip.
So this terrain is changing now, Emil.
Yep.
Where are we heading to?
We're heading up to Landmannalaugar.
Whoa, say that again.
Landmannalaugar.
Landmannalaugar.
Yeah.
Which is another of Iceland's famous natural wonders, a hot spring.
What are the biggest challenges that you face when you're driving off-road properly in Iceland?
glacier rivers can be quite challenging. Normally you can drive on top of the snow with the right equipment, but there are a lot of areas where you have crevices where you can fall into.
Okay.
And you kind of have to know where you're going, and you have to both have navigation skills, and you also have to know the glaciers.
So where's next?
Across this mountain there.
Okay. You sure we're going to make it before tea?
Well, we'll see about it.
Looking at the modifications, you'd expect it to drive like a blancmange on wheels, but it doesn't. Because the power steering is stronger, you don't really notice the huge tyres, though they can wobble a bit at high speed on normal roads. But when you're driving this car off-road, you soon feel like you're in an automotive suit of armour. You don't look at things and wonder, you just drive over them and see what's next.
Wow, look, it's all changing again. Yep. Oi. Okay, this is a little bit more bumpy. Oh, look, a rainbow. Yeah. Wow. I wonder if we'll find a pot of gold at the end of it.
Hiring one of these costs about €730, and with that you also get a trained instructor for the day. But if you wanted to do this regularly and already owned a standard Land Cruiser, then you can have the modifications done for around €36,000.
That's amazing.
A hefty price tag, but it does mean you'll be able to reach places that will leave you speechless.
Wow.
If you're of the rich, sexy millionaire type, buying a new car isn't easy at all.
Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins are all rather predictable and commonplace these days. Great cars, but no originality, so...
If you want a car that none of your ultra-rich friends already drive, you might very well find yourself here on this miserable industrial estate near the Dutch town of Zeewolde, home to the most exclusive and most eccentric car manufacturers in the world, Spyker.
Spyker make around 100 cars a year for the rich and famous. Although they are quite secretive about their clientele, we know Jennifer Lopez bought one for her husband. It takes 600 man-hours to build each car, because each one is completely bespoke.
It's amazing. You would expect an exotic car like this to be born in heaven, or at least a magic place. But from the outside, this is just another boring building. But when you walk in, you see dedicated people working on cars, and everything is hand-built.
Spyker were the first manufacturer ever to use four-wheel drive and four-wheel brakes. They were one of the earliest makers of luxury cars, before going bankrupt in 1925.
But in 2000, the Spyker name was revived with this, the C8. And it's this car that's still on production today, for prices starting at €200,000.
Spyker say that the design of their modern cars is heavily influenced by their aeronautical heritage. And it's easy to see this in some of the more unusual lines and vents on the body.
The styling of the C8 is very unconventional, to say the least. But according to Spyker's philosophy, every design feature must have a function. Look at these air tubes. They feed cooling air to the brakes and the engine. And these gills, they're all over the car really. They withdraw the hot air again. It sort of makes it look like a plane or a fish with holes in it.
But the real key to buying a Spyker is choice. This is a manufacturer who claims to offer an unlimited number of options, which means you can specify anything from air conditioning to the ergonomic design of your seats.
Long wheelbase, short wheelbase, coupe, spider, manual or automatic gearbox. And then you gotta choose your engine settings, what gauges you want on the dashboard, and pretty much anything you could possibly think of.
When a C8 is made, its frame and panels are lovingly handcrafted from aluminium sheet, and every single component of the car is numbered to identify it with the chassis. Any conceivable color can be ordered for the body, for a price.
Standard colors are free, but if you want a bespoke paint job, that'll cost you an extra €4,500. And none of the other options are cheap either. If you want heated seats, they'll charge you an extra €2,800. And if you want the Spyker logo on the headrest, that'll be €500. And if you want the Spyker script on the brake calipers, that's another 3,400 euros. I really hope that's for all 4 of them and not each. If you've ordered a car from Spyker, you'll get this dedicated webpage on which you can see exactly what has been done and still has to be done on your car. You can even view the assembly live. Currently, only the C8 is available, but 2 new models are in the pipeline. An SUV called D8 and this C12 Zagato, which is an Italian design. It's hard to believe, but it's even more extreme than the C8. Honestly, I prefer the C8. This is a bit over the top for me.
The Spyker experience looks very special, but what do they feel like to drive? It was time to take a factory-fresh C8 out for a spin.
The inside of this car is even more extreme. It's all based on aviation. Look at these beautiful switches saying click, click. Look at this gear lever. It's all metal on metal. You can see the mechanic, and the feeling with the mechanic is very, very good. You're one with the machine. And behind my back is the engine, which reminds me all the time that this is not a showcase. This is made for driving and driving only. This is really loud, really rough. I mean, listen to this. On a straight line, it's so fast in acceleration, very agile.
The C8 is fitted with a 4.1-liter V8, borrowed from Audi. 405 PS and 480 Newton meters of torque gets it to 104.5 seconds and onto a top speed of 300 kph.
To my ears, the sound of this engine is music, pure music. But you might have neighbors who have a different opinion on that when you start the car early in the morning. So there's a little hidden button in there. When I push it, the sound is gone. Of course, we're a car show, we like the sound, come on. Woohoo! It's a lot of money that you pay for this car, but it's worth every penny. It's so exclusive, so beautiful, and it's such a joy to drive it. It's a Dutch car, and it makes me proud of being Dutch. It's almost overstyled, but in a very good way, and that's Spyker for you. It's a mixture of genius, madness, and hand-stitched orange leather. They know how to turn buying a new car into an almost epic experience, and I love it.
In part 2, Jonny's in Italy driving the Alfa Romeo Mito.
It'll really chip along.
And Sabine's in Germany testing the Mercedes GLK.
Woo! Woo! Yes!
If you walk past this car in the street, I don't think you'd know it was a brand new design. I don't even think you'd know who made it or in what decade it was made. Without the badges, it could be a Subaru Forester from the 90s. But here is a surprise.
It's a brand new Mercedes, a GLK. And while it looks like it was designed by a carpenter, Mercedes are hoping to attract all the stylish moms and dads who are interested in a BMW X3 or an Audi Q5.
Which could be tricky, because the styling on the inside is just as wooden as the outside. Mercedes say it mirrors the look of their bigger GL class, but that's got 7 seats, so can justify its boxiness. I'm not sure whether trendy people going for a 5-seater SUV will want it to look so unsophisticated. To claw back some ground, this 45,000 euro car will need to be a much more attractive proposition on the move.
My first impression was, this car has leaf spring suspension and I will fly off the road in the first corner.
In fact, this car isn't agricultural at all. Mercedes have fitted something high-tech called agility control. Basically, the shock absorbers have got little brains that tell them when to be soft and when to be hard. Soft for cruising, harder for cornering.
But it never comes alive like a BMW X3. Mercedes designed this car that it understeers in nearly every condition. So it's safe, but I call it boring.
The smooth 3-liter turbo diesel engine is also at odds with the looks. You'd expect it to resemble something used to plow a field, but it's much better than that. This 320 CDI is the one to go for out of a bunch of thirsty petrols and weedier diesels, and gives a decent 227 PS with nearly 542 Newton meters of torque. And because it's a V6, it's nice and smooth.
Mercedes say it gets to 100 kilometers per hour in 7.5 seconds, and it does a 220 top speed. This is what I would usually test right now. But I think we do some real-world testing now. Let's go off-road! Okay, here goes. Let's make it through the mud with my Mercedes. Woo! Yes! I've done it! And now, you can't say that I didn't test the off-road ability of this car.
But in the unlikely event you really needed to go off-road, there's an optional G button which gives the car a slower throttle response and lowers the threshold of the ESP and ABS. It's a bit like the terrain response system in a Land Rover, so not quite as clever. But I'm still not convinced by the GLK.
If you want a high driving position and a posh image of an SUV and a car-like drive, then the best buy is still a BMW X3. If you want a chunkier image and some real off-road talent, then you should still buy a Land Rover Freelander. The Mercedes GLK has tried to match the best of both, but I don't think it's worked.
Today I've come to the brand new Mirafiori Motor Village. It's based at Fiat's oldest and largest assembly plant in Italy, and is basically a posh and cool set of showrooms for Fiat Group cars. The thing I'm most interested in is made by Alfa Romeo.
This is the juicy bait that Alfa is dangling in front of those yuppies in their tenner-penny minis. It's not so much an Italian stallion, it's more an Italian Shetland pony. Meet the Mito. Designed in Milan, built in Torino. You can see what they've done there. If BMW had adopted the same naming policy for their new Mini, it would be called the Oxmew. Built in Oxford, designed in Munich.
Anyway, I digress. I have to admit to being a bit obsessed with car stats, and I've discovered something rather good about the Mito. It's 3 centimetres taller than a Mini, so you should have more headroom, and it's 4 centimetres wider, so you should have more shoulder room.
Staggeringly, the Mito is 41 centimetres longer than the Mini. That is that much longer, which means there's more room in the back for getting amorous in, which is nice.
The Mito is available with a 1.6 diesel engine, or this, a 155 PS 1.4 turbocharged petrol. It has a 6-speed gearbox, top speed of 215 kph, and a 0 to 100 time of 8 seconds flat.
I'm really impressed by the way the engine and transmission feels on this car, and I'm still in shock at how responsive that 1.4 turbo petrol is. It'll really chip along.
Inside is state-of-the-art Italian design that's got all the passion you'd want from an Alfa. The seats embrace you, the controls beckon you. It's all there to look after the driver.
The driving position of the Mito suits me down to the ground because I can get the seat nice and low, the dash is up high, so you're sat down in the car, feels sporty. Love the gear stick, love the embossed logos, love the feel of the steering wheel. There's lots of bumps and curves, but it looks sporty, it makes you feel special. And the Mito has nicked nearly all of its styling cues from the Big Daddy 8C Competizione.
And considering the 8C is Alfa's €150,000 supercar, the Mito is a bargain at under 15,000. But it's not just about sexy looks. Under the skin, the Mito has a darker side that wants to tease you and lead you astray.
This sexy switch next to my right knee provides 3 different behaviour modes for the suspension, the steering, the engine, the transmission, everything. It's called the DNA. D stands for dynamic mode, which is the one you press to unleash a bit more power, sharpens everything up, makes it a bit more leery. N is normal mode, which is probably geared towards comfort and just day-to-day driving. And then A is all-weather mode, when perhaps it's snowing or there's not a lot of grip on the road, or you're paranoid and you don't want to crash, that is as safe and as grippy as possible. This engine's got 230 newton meters of torque when you switch that dynamic button and give it hell. Alfa claim that the car's got awesome torsional stiffness in its body thanks to the use of special steel. I don't know what that means. It feels well appointed and well bolted together, and those are two things which a lot of people wouldn't associate with Alfa Romeo.
They don't scrimp on safety either. With 7 airbags including driver's knee bag and window bags, protective wraparound seats and collapsible steering wheel, it's not surprising the Mito scored a 5-star NCAP rating.
The Mito is aimed at a new generation of drivers. They call them Alfistes. What they're looking for really is to sell this to 18 to 30-year-olds. I think from every angle the Mito looks confident, interesting and cheeky. Looks like it could fight above its weight. On the track, off the track, down the back streets of Italy. It's impressive. It's really, really impressive.